Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Greenville's meeting. We are doing Rotary different, and we welcome you for joining us. We're always glad to see our Rotarians. We are especially glad to see our guests who are with us today. If you are a guest with us today, would you please go into the chat room and just introduce yourself and let us know what your name is and maybe what organization you are with. We'd all like to acknowledge your presence and thank you for being with us. And we certainly thank Tom Barkin for being with us. We look forward to hearing from you in a few minutes with a further introduction. So to start off our meeting today, if Jim Purrier will have our pledge and invocation.
Jane, I'm going to put you on the spot. Jim is not on here. If you could do the invocation, and if you've got a flag, do a pledge for us as well.
Okay, if you guys are up for this, we're going on a walk. We have a flag. So if everyone will just take a minute and we'll go to God. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the blessings that you have for us and that you give to us and the world that you have put us in. We each have a part in this world. Help us to know what that part is as we seek to do the good work of Rotarians in our community and around the world. We thank you for those who mean so much to us, and we hope that your loving hands will be on those who need your care and your guidance. We always pray for our country and the world, that we all may seek to do the right thing, to bring the world together, and to serve in peace. Amen. Okay. The pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going back inside. Thank you for being flexible today, folks. Okay. Rotary opens opportunities, and in our club this year, we're working on networking, service, and fun. For service, September has been great. We've had 2 great service projects. We did the cleanup at Rotary Park. Thanks to Caroline Stewart, she was able to get the community to work, the city to work with us, and we had community volunteers, and we had at least a dozen Rotarians, and we got soaking wet, but it was awesome. We cut down a whole lot of bamboo, we pulled some weeds, we pulled some vines. It was a great opportunity. Our second project was Happy Feet, and you're going to hear more about that in a little while. We have all done a great job with these, as best job we could with these Zoom meetings, but on October the 27th, our plan is to meet in person at the Westin, and it will be for a very, very great reason. Our teachers have always meant the world to us in Rotary. We sponsor the Teacher of the Year program every year, and we get to hear first-hand accounts of the finalists for Teacher of the Year, and it is so inspirational. But this year, more than ever, our teachers are our heroes. So our first meeting back at the Westin will be a hybrid meeting. It'll be our Teacher of the Year event, so it's going to be really wonderful. We do request that you register ahead of time just so we have some idea of how many people will be able to attend, and also know that it will be a hybrid meeting. So it will be available on Zoom for those who are not able to come in person. To make sure that this thing runs as smoothly as possible, we do need some tech support volunteers. If you are savvy in the tech area, please let us know. And if you are not technically savvy, but you know someone is, this is your opportunity to be a snitch. So just let Michelle or myself know who might be great at this, and we will be happy to contact them. So we're really looking forward to Teacher of the Year and it being our first meeting together and the opportunity to honor our teachers. October is super busy. We have that returning to the Westin. We also are going to invite all our Rotarians who are interested to join us in the Greenville Equity Challenge. I've had several Rotarians who want to do something, who want to be a part of the solution. And many of you may know that one of the avenues of service for Rotary is peace and conflict resolution / prevention. So our brand new Diversity and Inclusion Committee has looked into, it's been suggested that those who are interested join together and do a 21-day program called Greenville Equity. It will start on October the 5th. If you're interested in this, please email Allie Van Dyke or myself, or go to Michelle, or go to our website. So that's the Greenville Equity Challenge, starting October the 5th for 21 days. There'll be material and some study and some input, so it'll be really great. And then in October, like I said, we're doing Rotary different. We have had the opportunity in years past to go into the schools and read to children, which if you have done that, you know how fulfilling that is. And unfortunately, right now we cannot go in the schools. So we're going to do it different. In October, we're going to have Rotary Reads. We're going to challenge our club to read 50 books that are on the approved book list for Greenville County Schools. We're going to download all those videos and make them available to the students to see on their own. So there'll be 2 ways to do this. The easiest way is you'll be able to go into the office, make an appointment with Michelle, set it up ahead of time, go to the office, the books will be there, Michelle will tape you reading, and then you'll review it and Michelle will download it, and that's the easiest way. If you're like me and kind of would rather do it on yourself in your own time, there'll be a way where you can, you get your book and then you video it, and then there's procedures for you to review it and download it. And so you can just do it all at your own time in your own space. So that's going to be in October. That is going to be Rotary Reads, our 50 book challenge. So be thinking about that. As far as social event goes, we're having Plain Jane's Place on Thursday, October the 1st at 4:30. That's a virtual get together. I have found out so many interesting things about our fellow Rotarians, got to know them better. We're trying to kind of get away and travel a little bit in our minds for a little while. So please join us on October the 1st at 4:30. And then for networking, once again, this is kind of an offshoot of Peace and Conflict Resolution. We have Lunchtime Conversations. It's hosted by Teresa Miller. It's a guided conversation process, which is very interesting. It's teaching us to learn to listen to others and to be able to portray what we believe or want to share with others in a way where everybody listens and learns. That's Tuesday, October the 6th. So you can tell October is super busy. We got all these great things going on. If you have a friend or a colleague that might be interested in Rotary, this might be the perfect time. So please invite them to Discover Rotary, an hour-long information session where they can learn a lot more about all the great things our club is doing. We have one on October the 20th at 5:30 and October the 27th at 11. And of course, you can't remember all this stuff. So if you go to our website that's been newly updated, greenvillerotary.org, the answers are always there, and you can always contact me or Michelle. So we got a lot going on. We hope that you'll be able to participate in as many of those things as possible. And so one of the great things coming up is our fall outing, which too will be different. So Tavia Gaddy is going to explain to us today how we can get involved with that.
Okay, so if you are tired of being isolated during COVID-19, welcome to Rotary 13. So we are having our fall outing on October 13th from 5:30 until 7:30, and there will be 5 different locations that you can choose from. This event is also going to be supporting Alexander Elementary School's Thanksgiving box. And we ask that because we are fighting COVID-19 in Rotary's own special way with a lucky number of 13, that you donate a minimum of $13.13 during the event. We're also going to be checking in to see which location actually raises the most money. So sounds like it should be a fun event. Come on out. Registration is limited because we are still going to be practicing our social distancing. So look forward to seeing you and having you all involved on the 13th.
Thank you, Tavia. We're starting a new thing called the 5-Minute Spotlight. And so today, Ann Wright and Jackie Kabasco are going to share with us.
Thank you, Jane. I'm going to share my screen. We have some pictures to share with y'all. And let's see. There we go. All right, so hopefully you can see that. So I am Jackie Cabasco. I'm a member of this club, and I'm also a development officer for the Greenville Tech Foundation. And I have my boss with me today, Ann Wright. She is our vice president for advancement for the foundation as well. And we are just so excited to share with you a little bit about Greenville Tech's newest location called the Culinary and Hospitality Innovation Center. And we are located in the village of West Greenville. The foundation recently relocated our offices to be right next to the Culinary Center, so that's exciting for us as well. So if you're familiar with the village of West Greenville, we're in the new development called Poe West. So it's just about 2 blocks back off of Pendleton Street. And the address is 556 Perry Avenue. And I'm gonna turn it over to Ann then, who's gonna tell us a little bit about why we created this center.
Thank you, Jackie, and hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. We are part of a very exciting project that actually began about 3 years ago. Hearing from the culinary and hospitality industry at the time, primarily in the city of Greenville and the downtown area, and the need for skilled entry-level employees, as well as hearing from the city of Greenville about the need in the West Greenville community, a community that pre-pandemic was experiencing about 10% unemployment. And then the capabilities of Greenville Technical College in terms of its accessibility and affordability brought together this whole vision of putting a program of the college that is non-credit, certificate-based, that can be very flexible and responsive to the industry, the culinary and hospitality industry, and to locate it in a distressed neighborhood where we might be able to lift up many who are capable of working but had problems either getting to work with transportation, or perhaps they just needed some training. So we are thrilled that about 3 years later, we are open. And you'll get some glimpses of the facility as we go through the next few slides with you, but we encourage you to visit here, and Jackie will tell you at the end about our website and how you can find out more. But as you can see, we're real excited about the opportunities that this location and its flexible space provides. So many of you are probably aware that the Greenville Technical College has a culinary school. It's called the Culinary Institute of the Carolinas, and it is located off of White Horse Road in the Berea area. This does not replace that. So that is a credit program. That's a 2-year degree. This center is focused on what we call quick jobs or short-term training, and again, it's certificate-based. So the picture you see here is our service training dining room. This is where we will train servers and wait staff, all of your front of the house staff, and we will have industry input in terms of the training they receive. So interesting, with the pandemic, there are some additional things that the front staff need to know in terms of serving amidst the pandemic. So we are here for them. Also, part of that lab includes a bar area. And the bar area will, again, teach all facets of beverage training, including operation of an espresso machine, barista coffee, specialty coffees, certainly wine, and mixed drinks. So again, it's set up to really emulate the experience that the worker would have in a restaurant area. Next, we have a really neat spot for all kinds of classroom opportunities. There's 2 classrooms. Each of those classrooms can hold about 25. Right now, course occupancy is about half of that. You can see in this picture people with their masks and their socially distance. But this classroom can be made into 1, or it can be divided into 2. And we can actually stream from other parts of the facility, which you'll see in a moment. So this is our culinary studio. It's a demonstration kitchen. It is meant to be for demonstrations. It is television ready. We actually televise a show on WSPA every week out of our studio here. This is a type of situation where you might want to attend in order to learn to cook something, and then you'll actually get to sample it and take the recipe home with you. This is a great way to teach not only people who might be wanting to learn more about cooking professionally, but certainly personally. I don't know if any of you have found this out, but we seem to be doing a lot more cooking these days anyway. And then next, we have our teaching kitchen. So this is designed primarily for those who would be working in the industry. It is set up exactly like you would find if you were working in the back in a kitchen. We have brand new equipment, as you can see. These are for community education classes as well as job training. And again, between the studio and the teaching kitchen, we can broadcast into the classrooms that you saw a little bit earlier. So again, we're looking to really get people in the area of culinary and hospitality entry-level positions. And then we're prepared to actually move into other more certificate-based programming as the industry tells us what they need. That's what's so beauty about this facility. And last but not least is our outdoor cooking patio. And you can see that we've got some cookers out there. We have a pit master. We will be doing all kinds of grilling demonstrations using charcoal, wood, pellets, and gas. So all of these facilities are available. They can actually be rented by a company or a corporation. You could do something as a family and attend one of the demonstrations in the studio. There's all kinds of possibilities in this facility, and we would love to have you come and experience it with us. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we do have some naming opportunities, this grill patio for one, the culinary studio and the teaching kitchen, as well as the server training lab, are also available for naming, so we'll be glad to provide you information about that if you like.
Thank you, Anne. So I just wanted to share a couple upcoming things that we have going on. So we are scheduled to have our virtual ribbon cutting and the announcement of the naming of the facility next week, Tuesday, September 29th at 10 a.m. That'll be a virtual event, so it'll be on YouTube premiering live at 10, and then it'll be available to watch later. So if you'd like to be a part of that, feel free to either follow us on social media, which will be on the next slide, or you can email me and I can make sure you get that link. We are excited to be a part of the community at Po West. So some of our other tenants in the building, including Carolina Barn House, which is a local brewery. They are having an event called The Peachening on Saturday, October 3rd, and our wonderful chefs are going to be smoking some food to go with that event. So if you're in the area and want to come join us for that, that sounds like it'll be a fun time. And then, of course, Anne talked a lot about all of our offerings, not just for the industry, but for the general public and all of you as well. So right now, there are over 50 classes of all different topics that are scheduled through December. So you can go to chigreenville.com, click on learning options and see what classes are available. They're very affordable. So the demo classes that you would watch the demo and then have a tasting are right around $45 or $50. Some are a little bit less. And then if you want to do your hands-on in the kitchen where you're actually making food, those are about $120 or so. And they're like an afternoon or a several hour class. So there's lots of options. We can also do customized things. So if you are interested, feel free to reach out. We're happy to see what we can do and how we can collaborate. So with that, here's our social media, Facebook and Instagram and our website, and that's our main phone number. I'm also putting in the chat the website and then a link to our digital brochure. If you want to see some of that information again, you have that link, and feel free to reach out to me or any of our other staff through the website and phone if you have questions.
Thank you, Ann and Jackie. That was wonderful. And of course, for the rest of us now, we all want something smoked and grilled right now. Sounds wonderful. So we look forward to being a part of that. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, that we had Happy Feet was one of our great service projects. So this past Saturday, we had our second annual Happy Feet, which was fantastic. It's a wonderful project where students from Alexander Elementary show up and they're given a voucher. They're selected by the school and they're given a voucher to come get a new pair of shoes. And we had 22 precious young children come. One little girl was so thrilled because there's a certain kind of shoe that everybody at school has but her, and the principal told me that she was able to get those shoes too, and now she feels like she's a part of the class just like everybody else. So that's one of the many great stories from there. The kids were precious. We were fortunate to have 14 Rotarians. A few got to go inside and help, of which John was one of those, so we appreciate it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay. You got it.
Technical difficulties. So my apologies. So yeah, I just wanted to say, as Jane said, I thought it was a great event. This was the first time I had been able to join Happy Feet, and thank goodness I joined a networking event last week that Josh Fowler led, and I think that kind of spurred me on. So as Jane said, I don't want to be redundant. I thought my main takeaway was I thought the kids were so appreciative. I think we had, like she said, 22 children. I think the principal, Miss Nesbitt from Alexander Elementary, was there along with two of her staff. And I believe we had 14 Rotarians, 3 guests. I tried to have another guest. I wanted my 12-year-old son to come with me, but I couldn't get him up early enough. I think one of the insights that I took away from it was we were the children had, I believe, a maximum of $40 to $45 for the shoes. And they were so appreciative, but I will tell you this, it was eye-opening for me because I know my son wants to spend a lot more money than that on shoes. So anyway, I thought it was great. They were very appreciative, so cute. And I also noticed that regardless of the age or where we are, these kids really know, they're very particular about their shoes. They really like the really bright and shiny ones. And anyway, it was a great day. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for helping out. Thanks to all those Rotarians who came. And of course, it was a great opportunity as we stood outside and cheered people on for us to get to see each other for the first time in a long time. So that was really a wonderful opportunity. Thank you to everybody that helped out. Now to Topgolf. You know, we scheduled this back in the spring and delayed it once and delayed it again, but it's happening on October the 22nd. It's our Masters Classic Golf Tournament fundraiser. We have scaled it down a little bit. Instead of the whole top 3rd floor, we're going to use half of it, and we still have 6 spots available. If there's anybody out there who would like to still come join us, we are going to have a silent auction. This will be available 2 weeks prior. I think that's October the 8th. We're going to make sure that you know all about it. You can go and see the items. We've got trips, which will be wonderful. We've got jewelry. We've got events. We've got all kinds of things. So we'll ask you to jump in there, check it out, share it with your friends. These are wonderful things that many of you have donated, and it'll just be a great event. And of course, the golfing will be wonderful. We're still going to have a great time fellowshipping. We'll be wearing our masks, social distancing, taking precautions, and you know it is an outdoor venue. So that's October the 22nd. It's still on, and we look forward to it. If you're still interested, then go to our website and you can get some more information. So that'll be a great opportunity. And so today, Mark Ferris will be introducing our speaker, and thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jane. Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's well. We're honored to have with us today Mr. Tom Barkin. He's President and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. In this role, he's responsible for monetary policy, bank supervision, payment services, and the Fed's National IT organization. He also serves on the Fed's Open Market Committee, and he's on the ground continually in the Fed's 5th District, which includes South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, DC, West Virginia, and Maryland. And he's brought a real focus to the less prosperous parts of that district. Tom joined the Richmond Fed in January of 2018, and he's a native of Tampa, Florida. Attended Harvard University. He earned his undergraduate and MBA and law degrees there. Something you may not know is Tom also serves on the executive committee for the U.S. Golf Association, a vaunted position. So if anybody has an issue with how low their golf handicap is, I've got his personal cell phone number, and you can call him and talk with him about that. But we're really pleased and honored to have Tom with us today. Tom, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mark, for that nice introduction. I admit I was surprised to be here with you virtually today and not invited to your Topgolf outing. But maybe if I do a good job today, I'll get that invite. I have to say it's great to be with you, even if virtually. And I am intrigued and excited, actually, that you guys are going to meet at the Westin at the end of October. One of the things we're trying to look at is, when do people have the confidence to go back to closer to normal? And I think it's just very helpful to hear from you how you're thinking about it. In terms of today, I thought I might just spend a few minutes sharing some perspectives on where the economy is. Also share a little about what I look at in terms of where it might be headed. And then I'm totally open to questions and comments and input. What you're going to hear from me are my thoughts, not that of the FOMC specifically or the Federal Reserve System, because that frees me up to be as direct as you want me to be. And so hopefully we can have a good conversation. My background is actually business, not research. So I think I come at things a little bit differently, and maybe that'll be interesting. So let me just start with the big picture, which of course you guys know, but sometimes it helps to encapsulate it. We shut the economy down in March and April, and of course economic activity fell off a cliff. We opened it back up in May and early June, and of course the economy came back rapidly. It then started to flatten in late June and July because the virus came back. Now, over the last month, the virus has receded somewhat. Cases are still at elevated levels, but the death rate has dropped. Vaccines are becoming ever more proximate, but it's still unclear when they're going to get rolled out and how effective they're going to be. If you look at recent data, most notably the jobs report we saw a couple weeks ago, it's actually been a little bit more positive than at least I was expecting. Congress has failed to pass another stimulus measure, which creates risks to the less fortunate. Though to be fair, it's hard to see that impact yet in the numbers. So if you add that big picture view up, where are we? Given the steepness of the drop in the first part of the recovery, it's actually pretty hard to look at growth rates and get a feel for where we are. So I like to talk about levels. Where are we now versus where were we, say, in February? So let me give you a few of those just to get your minds into it. The unemployment rate at our last report is 8.4%, which is up from 3.5% in February. South Carolina's is actually in the low sixes. There are 12 million fewer Americans employed, which is down 7.6%. Now, spending's coming back faster than employment. Consumption is down 4.8% from January. That's compared to 7.6% for employment. And if you dig into consumption, what you see is that the spending on goods is actually up 6.4%, while services are down 9.7%. People are at home, and of course, they're thinking of buying cars or furniture or new cabinets and spending the money that they're not spending at restaurants or bars or sporting events on goods. Business investment, our best proxy for that, which is non-defense capital goods excluding aircraft, is down only 0.5% from February, though it was lagging at the time. And of course, government spending is up 54% as fiscal policy has attempted to bridge the downturn. 12-month core inflation is 1.3%. That's down from 1.9% in February. So if that's where we are, where are we going to go? And I think it's fair to say predicting the economy right now is never easy, and it's harder now because you got virus uncertainty. I talked about that a little bit at the beginning. You've got fiscal uncertainty. I talked about that as well. And you've even got political uncertainty as we head into the fall. And so as I assess the outlook, I'll just share with you the 5 things that I'm watching. The first is the infection rate. And that may seem obvious, but I really do think the path of the economy is critically dependent on the path of the virus. If you look at the rolling 7-day average, it peaked in April at about 32,000 cases per day. By early June, it was down to about 21,000 a day before it escalated to almost 67,000 per day in late July. As of last Wednesday, it was at 39,000. So it's down significantly from late July, though still a little bit higher than it was in the April peak. On the positive side, hospitalization rates and death rates are dropping because infections are skewing younger and treatment protocols are improving. But persistent elevated infection rates does have implications, both psychological and practical. On the psychological front, the higher the case rate, the higher the economic uncertainty. And I think you'll agree with me that the higher the uncertainty, the harder it is to get yourself comfortable making big bets on hiring or spending or investment. On the practical front, there's still significant parts of the economy, think airlines or cruise lines or sporting events, that remain capacity constrained, which means the economy is not yet operating at its potential. So first thing is the infection rate. The second thing I look at is initial jobless claims. That's the number of people who first file for unemployment benefits in a particular week. Before the virus struck, they'd been running in the low 200,000 a week rate. That was almost at 50-year lows. They, of course, escalated with the shutdown and with enhanced unemployment insurance, but they've remained stubbornly high even after that enhancement has lapsed. Seasonally adjusted, they were still 893,000 last week. A week and a half ago, and 860,000 last week. For context, the prior historic high in the 50-year length of that series was 695,000 in 1982. So even now, 6 months after the shutdown, we're shedding jobs at a rate that exceeds our prior 50-year high. So what's happening there, right? Now, some of it can be explained technically. The pandemic assistance payments require applicants to apply and be turned down for unemployment. But I also talked to a lot of small businesses that may have received the PPP, but they're resizing their businesses now that they recognize they've got lower levels of demand. Think you're in a restaurant that only has outdoor seating. Bigger businesses tell me they too are streamlining their workforces because they want to be prudent as they head into the fall. And if this rate of initial claims continues, you have to imagine the recent improvements in the labor market are going to slow. The third thing I watch is labor force participation. That's the percent of people looking for a job. It's 61.7 in the last reading. That's 1.7 points below its rate in February. Now, that level had been creeping up over the last few years, despite the headwinds from demographics. But as always happens in a downturn, it dropped initially as people who lost their jobs chose not to look for another one, though perhaps less than normally given the enhanced unemployment. But the question is it going to bounce back in this recovery the way it traditionally does? Or will escalating care responsibilities at a time when childcare and schools may be closed or remote and elder care facilities are perceived to be less safe make it difficult to commit to work? Will baby boomers leave the workforce given what they may perceive as increased health risk? If we don't have strong participation by women and those aged 55 and older, our recovery is going to be limited by our inability to get workers. And I already hear employers, particularly in sectors like manufacturing and technology and healthcare, struggling with absenteeism and unfilled jobs, despite the fact that we've got over 8% unemployment. The fourth thing I look at is the savings rate. Now, that's the percent of money that people make that they save. In February, it was about 8%, which is up a little bit since before the financial crisis. In April, it was 34%. Now, that's because of the size of stimulus payments and the reduced spending that many of us had when we were sheltered at home. But in July, it was still 18%. And that's at a time where, despite the downturn, personal income is actually up almost 5%, again, because of these stimulus payments. The net of it all is there's a lot of money in people's pockets that might be cushioning the stop of fiscal stimulus and it could propel the economy at some point. But it's going to take people to be fully confident in shopping or traveling or going to movies or eating out or going to Rotary meetings. And so that's why I was glad to hear you say that at the beginning. And then once we get there, are the people who have all this money in their pocketbook going to spend it and boost the economy, or will they keep it as savings? And I think that's another core question I'm watching closely. The fifth is inflation, and I talked about it earlier. Throughout the last cycle, inflation stayed stubbornly below our 2% target. The price level actually fell slightly from February to April, as it often does, at the beginning of a downturn, before rebounding strongly for the last few months. On balance, though, over the last 12 months, core PCE inflation has remained moderate at 1.3%, suggesting that rebound isn't a sign of breakaway inflation, it's just a sign of returning to trend. But you could imagine other scenarios. For example, businesses are making stocking decisions for the next few quarters right now, and they're doing it in a time of both demand uncertainty and supply uncertainty. When I talk to them, I sense they're being cautious, and that reading is consistent with what you see in the retail trade data, meaning we're more likely to see stockouts than excess supply. So if a demand surge, savings come in off the sidelines, happens coincident with supply shortages, first half pricing could be stronger than what we've predicted. Speaking of inflation, I should tell you the FOMC that I serve on recently announced changes to our 2012 statement on longer run goals and strategy. We've said that in order to anchor inflation expectations at 2%, we seek to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time. And it has modestly lagged that 2% target for some time. In his speech, Chairman Powell called this flexible average inflation targeting, the flexibility coming from the lack of a specific formula. In addition, the committee said we will respond to shortfalls of employment from its maximum level. In the earlier version, we said we'd respond to deviations of employment. In other words, a low level of unemployment alone would not lead to preemptive increases in interest rates. Finally, it made explicit that meeting our mandate requires a stable financial system, which of course you guys know too. Obviously, the net of all that is a message that the Fed will aim to keep rates low until such time as we see moderate overshoots of inflation or financial stability risks develop. Our statement last Wednesday reinforced that message, which was supported by our projections in which the median respondent didn't have a rate increase through 2023. We also continue to engage in significant bond purchases that provide additional accommodation. So net, I remain hopeful we can put this virus and the related uncertainty behind us. If we can, as I said, there's untapped consumption, which could give the economy a real lift. And in the interim, the Fed continues to do whatever we can to provide support. And with that, maybe I'll open it up to questions or comments.
It's great, Tom. Thank you. Good insight. And certainly, I'll start us off with questions. I know I'm part of the regional roundtable for Asheville and Greenville, where we quarterly talk about business conditions in the area. You joined us last meeting, and we were great, pleased to have you as part of that. You serve obviously in the 5th district. How are we doing in comparison to some of those other areas? And do you think that we are in any way unique, or I've been surprised at how many prospects we still have here in terms of companies wanting to grow and expand. So how are you seeing things in the district?
Well, I think South Carolina for sure, and Greenville in particular, opened up earlier than the other parts of our district. If you're in Washington, D.C. right now, it's still not really open. And I think that helped the economy come back somewhat quicker, obviously at the risk of infection rates. And we definitely saw an escalation in South Carolina on the infection rate, particularly in that, late June, July kind of time frame. I did note, as I said earlier, the unemployment rate in South Carolina, I think it's 6.1 versus the national of 8.4. I'm sure those are related. And so you're doing better. And I think there's this interesting phenomenon going on. And we'll see whether it takes or not. But if you say that the country's been disproportionately going to the biggest cities over the last 10 or 20 years, in part because of where the jobs are, in part because of the amenities of a big city, in part because it was just a very cool thing to do. I think it's a lot less cool to try to do your job from your studio apartment, for which you're paying a couple $1,000s a month, while you're trying to, get your roommate out of the hair and you can't go to any of the restaurants with any of the friends you moved to town with and the subway's closed. I just think there's something pretty interesting about alternatives to that environment. And there'll be a lot of cities competing for people who want to leave that environment. But I think cities like Greenville that, have a very robust, jobs development program, right, which you guys have been brilliant at, I'd say, for 25 years, have a very attractive, in-town environment, and a very affordable cost of living, I think are going to be, well situated. So I fully expect Greenville and South Carolina more broadly, to the extent you see that movement out of the bigger cities, to be a very strong competitor there. You're on mute, Mark, I think.
Let's see. There we go. Thanks. But it's funny you mentioned that, because I was with a big law firm today, and they were talking about how many of the folks are working out of the office remotely, but that some of the newer people that they've hired don't have the benefit of that interaction with some of the other partners, and that training is becoming particularly difficult for them, and they feel like those associates are being left out, not having the benefit of being around. But it is a new kind of reality that we're dealing with, especially in terms of office environment. We do have a couple of questions. One comes from us, and it asks, what, if any, support will happen for the healthcare industry as a business?
Yeah. So let me just comment on the office environment point you made, because I think people get really quickly drive all the way to the end and say, we're all going to live at our beach houses until the end of time and no one's ever going to go to an office again. But I don't know that that's true. I think if you as an employer think that culture matters, if you think that, knowing people closely, if you think that, offline small conversations where you mentor someone or coach them or, give them some insight matters, I think it's going to be hard. I've not seen any record of people really working fully remote for lengthy periods of time. In fact, I think Bank of America 2 years ago brought everybody back, just as an example. But I do think flexible, is going to get underlined here. And I think that's good. I mean, and so the notion that you can actually operate remotely for a day or two when you need to, I think that'll help. In the healthcare industry, which obviously has never been more important than right now, it really is shocking, what the virus and the shutdown did to the economics of healthcare providers. So many of them had to shut down their elective surgery operations to make sure there was enough capacity. And while the doctors and nurses were putting their life at risk, the hospital economics actually, they didn't go get better, they got significantly worse. The CARES Act has provided some amount of money for those hospitals, but most every hospital system that I've talked to still has a pretty big hole coming out of it. And it's not obvious that has to persist, but it does, point out one of the real challenges the healthcare industry has, which is this cross subsidy between the corporate payers and the government payers, and of course the charity cases. And when you've got a situation where the virus hits disproportionately the most aged people who are most disproportionately on Medicaid or Medicare, and therefore, the least valuable to the hospital, the economics kind of get screwy, and you can't really make it up by just charging the corporate payers more. So I'm hopeful, I'll even say I'm confident in the aftermath of all this, that we'll take a step back and just try to think about how do we make sure we've got a healthy hospital system? Because as you could see in the panic of March, when we started worried about hospitals getting overrun, I mean, we need capacity and quality in our hospital system. And I don't think there's any debate about that.
No, thanks. So Michelle and Jane, y'all give me the heads up when we need to move on. But we do have a good question that came in. We always talk about the impact of the elections. We have companies that sometimes say, well, we'll wait till after the election to see how things shake out. But what do you think the election has for implications for this economy?
It's hard to know. I've actually gone back. First of all, I'm not going to answer the question. Second of all,
good idea.
Second of all, as I have gone back and tried to look at, close elections, not elections, one party or the other. I don't think you can find much in history that suggests that, the economy as a whole is dominated by the identity of the president. I think we have a pretty decentralized, pretty capitalistic economy, and it's, dominated by the actions of, business leaders and consumers. And I think those tend to, overwhelm the impact of whatever the government chooses to do or not do. That doesn't mean you won't have particular sectors that, will be happier or less happy with a particular outcome. But, I'm pretty confident that we've got an economy that for, 250 years has prospered under both parties.
Great, thanks. We had a good question about Bitcoin. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin, formation of a central bank digital currency, concern over the U.S. dollar, and how long do you think until we get major banks involved in crypto assets?
Yeah, so there were a lot of questions, obviously, in that one question. But let's just talk about a central bank digital currency for a second, which, could be Bitcoin or another, type of structure. We already have a central bank, a digital currency. I mean, as we speak right now, I've got $21 in my pocket in cash, and I've got all of the rest of my assets somewhere digitally. And so, when folks talk about a central bank digital currency, I always ask, what problem are we trying to solve? And I think there are some places you could say there are problems we would try to solve. One problem we might try to solve is lack of confidence in your home currency. And if I'm in Argentina or Turkey, I could see why I would want to have, dollars or gold or Bitcoin or something rather than my own currency. But I'm not sure in the United States that you'd rather have a Bitcoin than have a dollar. I think you'd rather have a dollar which is backed by the government of the United States, and you actually, know that. So, I'm not sure I see that use case. Another one people talk about are international transactions. And I think it is fair to say that, currency exchange or whatever internationally is probably more expensive than it ought to be. But again, that's something that could get solved and doesn't have to get solved with a new currency. A third reason people talk about is it gives, access to currency for the unbanked or the underbanked. But, you could have a Venmo account without a bank account. And in fact, I know people, including one of my kids who does. And so, it's just not obvious to me that that's the value proposition either. So, I keep asking myself, what problem are we trying to solve? And there may be one out there, but I haven't seen it yet.
Right. Yeah. So we had a question about the implications of a second shutdown. Are we preparing, planning, all of the above for that possibility?
Well, there's of course been a lot of talk about it, and I think if we have a second shutdown, that would be very damaging to the economy, just like the shutdown we had in March and April was. I have to say I'm pretty optimistic that we're not going to have a second shutdown. First of all, I think everybody saw how much damage was done to the economy in the first one. Second, and so I think the will to do that is lower. Second, I think we figured out a way to keep cases at least stable at elevated levels, which is the combination of, wearing a mask and keeping an appropriate distance and eating outside and, those sorts of things. And, I take positive note of the declining cases over the last, 6 weeks. I do think when the economy opened back up in May, I was at Pawleys Island actually Memorial Day weekend. It looked like, freedom. Thank God we've been locked down, and it's time to. I think now people realize until we get some treatment or vaccine protocol, we're not at absolute freedom. I'd compare it to universities. If you were at Penn State or North Carolina or Notre Dame in the first 2 weeks of school, you thought it was freedom. But now I think I've visited lots of colleges that have it under control at this point. I think there's a set of behaviors that keep this virus, tamped down, if not eliminated. And that's clearly a much superior play to shutting the economy down. And, maybe we're not going to be willing to do it, but faced with that alternative, I think maybe we will, like the college students are doing. I think faced to the alternative of getting sent home, once you sort of see a couple campuses get sent home, it sort of makes it real. And I think that's how I feel about the economy too.
Got a question, Tom, about the U.S. debt and the soaring deficit. What kind of impact do you think that may have initially and in the future?
Well, initially, I do think with this kind of shutdown of the economy, impact on a few targeted sectors, there's a real role for fiscal policy. In fact, that's why you have, government spending is in part to help shoulder the economy through downturn. So nothing I'm going to say is against the notion of spending money now. But, debt as a percent of GDP was 38% in 2007. It was 80% going into this downturn. It'll be over 100% now. By the way, Italy's at 175%. I don't aspire to be Italy. Japan's at over 200%. I don't aspire to be Japan. But I give you those because there's nothing that says that tomorrow we're necessarily going to have a problem. I mean, we might well not have a problem tomorrow. And there are economies that have managed to, hold on to higher debt levels. But at some point, the people to whom you owe money, ask to get paid for it. And there was a character at The Sun Also Rises, Hemingway, who when asked how he went bankrupt, said gradually and then suddenly. And that's kind of how it happens. At some point, the creditors say, we're not that comfortable anymore, and your interest rates spike. And it would be as though we did, a big number of interest rates right in a row. And that's not good for any economy. And there are multiple economies in the world that have seen that happen over time. The one thing that gives me hope is I don't think the mechanics of getting our financial situation in line are that hard. There was a great Today Show about 8 years ago that had a Tea Partier and a student and a retiree and a union member and, one of every segment of political society. And they gave them a bunch of flashcards and they balanced the budget in 20 minutes. So I think there are changes and choices we could make and actually get political support, but it just hasn't gotten enough focus yet.
Thanks. Now, I'm going to exercise my prerogative here and ask you the last question. Were you able to make it to Wingfoot last week?
It was great.
Invite you all to the U.S. Open?
It was socially distanced, absolutely. It was a great course. And for those of you who do like golf, I think you saw, what a really well set up course looks like. The greens were lightning fast but fair, and rough was very hard, and the guy who played the best won. So.
Yeah, Bryson played really well. That was interesting to watch. So, but thank you, Tom. I appreciate your time. We really have some, and I've ignored some very contemplative questions that have been popping up here. And I'm sorry to everybody who the dozen questions I did ignore. But thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being with us today.
Always glad to be here, and I look forward to my top golf invite.
Tom, speaking of top golf, yes, thank you very much for joining us. And as you can tell, as we have had our governor recently, our Rotarians put a lot of thought in these questions and are paying attention to everything that's going on. And I'm very proud to be a part of this group that not only wants to serve our community, to be educated so we can all move forward together. I guess I probably should have told you that Bloomberg was on. I'm sure you're never exposed to them because they come to our meetings every time we meet. So we really appreciate you being with us and your answers and for updating us on your view of what's going on. It was very informative. And we look forward to seeing you at Topgolf.
Always happy to do it. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. And thank you, Mark, for coordinating that for us. So also we want to thank all our Rotarians who had a part in today's event. It's always great to see you, and we certainly look forward to our opportunities in October. Hopefully we'll get to see you at either our Fall Fellowship or Rotary 13, October the 13th, or our next first hybrid meeting at the end of October so we can celebrate our teachers. So as we close out, let's all recite the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.